Hi everyone, I'm Igor Smirnov, International Grandmaster and a chess coach. In the previous lesson I encouraged you to send me your chess questions, and today I will start answering them. Let's go to the questions. There are quite a lot of them, a little more than 100. I won't be able to answer them all at once, so I will answer some of them today, and the rest will be answered in the next lessons. And before we start, let me make just a few little notes. First of all, thanks for sending me your questions. I think that'll be pretty interesting. We can start some conversation here. You'll be sending me your questions, I'll be answering them, and I can see that some conversation has been started already, and some people help to each other. That's great. And another note is that sometimes I have seen the questions that have already been answered in my past lessons. In such cases, I'll simply refer to those appropriate lessons, because obviously it makes no sense for me to repeat the same things over and over again. Okay, now here we go. We'll just start. I'll start from the top and then we'll go to the down. There are a lot of them, as we can see. Okay, let me start from this comment. It's about a kid, and I always treat such questions very seriously, because it's indeed very important. A proper training can ensure a good start and a quick progress of a kid who's learning chess. And on the other hand, unfortunately, very often mistakes made by chess coaches and parents just forces a kid to abandon chess. That's why let me answer it quite seriously. Okay, you have a few seconds to read this comment before I start answering it. In fact, it contains a couple of questions, so let me start them one by one. Hi Igor, I'm a father of a 9-year-old boy who loves chess very much. That's great. It's really the most important factor. If person has motivation, has interest to chess, then this is the most important thing that can help him to progress quickly. If we talk about professional chess, then normally people start learning chess earlier, somewhere at 5 years old, but okay, still it's not too late, it's fine. Okay, let's go next. I can see that you have start using my training courses to teach your son, and it seems like it helped him already. That's great. Just a little note about that, it requires quite a lot of training and discipline to make it work on 100% of its potential, because learning the lesson just once or even twice is often not enough. You need to repeat it over and over again until it will become a habit. And here your help to your son can be very important. Now let's go next. I see that there will be an upcoming tournament in November, pretty soon, but still you have some time to prepare. And you say that he's lacking in his calculation technique and sometimes overlooks opponent's aggressive reply. I've noticed that normally when persons say that he has problem with calculation, in fact he's talking about blunders, and as you said, the problem is overlooking opponent's strong replies. Actually, I've already made a couple of lessons about avoiding blunders. You may just look at them. Okay, let me pause my recording and I will paste the links to appropriate lessons. Below your comment I have added the links to related video lessons where you can find some tips on how to prevent blunders. Right now I just want to show you one very useful practical rule, which is probably the most important thing in the topic of preventing blunders. This is a position from the recent game between Ponomaryov and Caruana. It was played today. And with this example, I'd like to show you how you need to think during a practical game in order to prevent blunders. In this position, White decided to play bishop f4. Oh, let's say you are going to make this move. Before executing this move, before playing it on the board, you need to make one very important thing. I call it an anti-blunder check. So let me explain. Before playing this move, you need to ask yourself, which attacking replies can my opponent play on my half of the board? Let's see how it works. I will make this move just to make it clearer. Oh, in such a situation, before playing this move, you need to divide the board in two parts mentally and focus your attention on your half of the board. I just highlighted this area, so you look solely on this area of the board. And then the next thing you focus your attention on is that you start looking at opponent's pieces and think how he can move them forward and attack or take something on this territory which I highlighted, on your half of the board. In most cases, the quantity of eventual attacking moves is just from 1 to 3 moves. I mean, the quantity is very little. Like in this example, black can probably go knight to g4, this one, taking the queen, but it's not really dangerous. The queen can retreat somewhere, for example, to d4. It rather helps white. With the light squared bishop, black has an open diagonal, but there is nothing to attack there. There are no attacking moves. With the dark squared bishop, we need to look at the direction forward, and here bishop d6 could be an attacking move, but in this case it does not work. White will simply take it. The only available attacking move is bishop to a3. It was played in the game actually. Bishop a3, it's a discovered attack on white's queen, and that's why it has to retreat. And after that, bishop took the b2 pawn, and suddenly black got a quite big advantage. He's taking the rook and the knight simultaneously. If white removes the rook, black will take the knight and then take the d5 pawn as well, with a double attack on white's queen and f4 bishop, which gives black a big advantage. This happened in the game, and well, not exactly this variation. In the game, white decided to give up an exchange. Instead of rook b1, he played queen takes d3, he gave up an exchange, but anyway, he was down in material and lost the game afterwards. You can see that it was very easy to prevent this variation and not to make this mistake by simply making that anti-blunder check. Let's go back to that position and observe it once again. Okay, here's the starting position of that tactical variation. As you can see, in fact, black had only 2 attacking moves, and it is very easy for white to notice them if you make this anti-blunder check. Of course, you need to train this way of thinking until it becomes a habit, and you do it in a few seconds, because really it requires just a few seconds when you have trained it well enough. By the way, the same way of thinking is applicable for you when you are looking for the attacking moves. You also need to divide the board in 2 parts, but in that case you focus your attention on opponent's half of the board. Let me do that. So I highlighted the black's half of the board. You focus your attention on this area solely, and you ask yourself how can you move something forward and take or attack something on the opponent's half of the board. Which attacking moves white has in this position? Not that much really. Perhaps the only attacking move is d6, attacking the bishop. And by the way, if black's rook would be on f8 instead of e8, then d6 would be a real threat. It would capture black's bishop, but in the current situation it's not dangerous for black. The bishop can retreat to f8. Nevertheless, d6 is the only real attacking option for white. As you can see, this is a very important technique. When you apply it for the white half of the board, you can check the aggressive replies of black and you can prevent blunders. When you apply this way of thinking for black's half of the board, you can find powerful attacking moves. And this is a really very useful training. You can do it while observing some games. You can first think from white side, try to find attacking moves. After that, you may start thinking from black side and try to find attacking moves for him. Also, you can flip the board and then observe the same situation from black side and try to do all the same things once again. First check the attacking moves for black, then check the attacking moves for white, and you will develop this skill really well. So this is the training that you need to perform, and after that you will reduce the quantity of your blunders down to very minimum. Okay, I came back to the blog where we can see this question. I answered almost everything here, I think. Let me see. Also, I can see that you are teaching your son with the help of my training courses, and you're asking, can you be a good coach for your son? Yes, you can. At a certain stage, it's possible from the beginning, but later on, of course, you will need to engage a certain professional coach, because it will become more tough, the competition will become harder, and the training will need to become more professional. From the beginning, you may teach your son by yourself. Of course, it will be very helpful if you study the course Self-Taught Grandmaster, because you will understand different things about coaching a lot better, and you will have a clear picture in your head about the whole progress from the beginning till the end, and thus you'll be able even to plan the progress of your son. And where can you find a good coach? Well, that's really a good question. I've been struggling by myself a lot when I was a kid and when I was looking at a coach. That's really a very good question. Actually, I've wrote a separate lesson about that, how to find a good coach. Let me just pause the recording. I will paste the link to that article. I have added the link where you can read the article How to Find a Good Chess Coach, and please observe it and you'll have some ideas on how to find a good coach for your son. To conclude my answer, let me tell you that the most important thing which I can see here is that your son has an aspiration for chess, and with your support he already got some improvement, some progress. That's excellent. Let me wish you all the best. And now we're going to the next comment. Okay, it's just on the top. Hello, could you kindly explain more about your thinking system? Thanks in advance. Well, this is a very good question indeed, straight to the point. I also do believe that this is the most important thing we need to think about if we want to improve our chess. I'm answering this question in most of my lessons and in all my training courses, and I will definitely keep doing the same in the future. It's difficult to answer this question right now because it's pretty wide, but in the future lessons I'll of course reveal some more secrets of Grandmasters. By the way, right now I'm working on the new opening course, and one of the main differences of this opening course compared to other opening tutorials will be exactly this orientation on the thinking process. So I'm gonna not just show you some variations that you need to memorize, some opening lines, but explain you how to find correct moves in the opening. How can you do it? Not just memorize somebody's ideas and then reproduce it in your games, but how can you apply the general principles and find correct moves in your games by yourself. And even if you study some opening theory, you will understand very well why the moves are so, and how those grandmasters found them. That's why in the end I just can say that your question is very good, and based on this question I can tell you that you are on the right track. If you keep focusing on improvement of your thinking system, you will definitely be progressing further, and I will do my best to help you on this way. Okay, now let's scroll it down to the next questions. Okay, let's come to this question. Now you have a few seconds to read it, and I'll do the same. Okay, I can see that you have started playing chess some months ago. First of all, welcome. This is a very interesting and good game, and I hope you have a positive experience here. And of course, it's gonna be difficult to become a very strong player just in a few months, but everything is waiting you ahead. In the future, you will definitely become a lot better player. Okay, now let me answer it more specifically. Well, I think I will record a separate lesson about it, because I noticed that quite a lot of people answers me in different ways about their prospects in chess and how fast can you progress and other related questions. Actually, I receive such questions all the time. sometimes from a few persons during one day. That's why I think I'll record a separate lesson about that. Anyway, right now I'll just give you a quick reply. In reply to the question, can you progress or not? Yes, definitely you can. There is nothing mysterious here. Chess game is also a skill that you can learn. You can learn a proper way of thinking. With the proper training you'll do it quicker, but in any case, as I've just said, there is nothing so mysterious here. You can learn how to drive a car, you can learn how to sing, or you can learn a foreign language, or you can learn chess. This is a skill and you can acquire it. If you would ask me, can you become a world champion or a grandmaster, I would have to say no, because I don't know your age, but I guess you're an adult person and it's difficult to start the professional career at that age. And also, based on your comment, I can see that you dedicate 1 hour for chess daily, which is definitely not enough for having real professional achievements. But it's enough to become a normal intermediate player and to play on a club level successfully, to play in the internet successfully, and to get a reasonable level of play. Yeah, that's you can do for sure. Also, I can see that another person has already answered your question. That's very nice from your side. So I encourage you really to take part in the conversation. You will help to another person and somebody will help you, and that's the power of our community. We can support each other, we can share the useful ideas that we have, we can share our positive experience. That's why let me thank everybody who took part in the conversation. And let's go forward. As I've said, I will record a special lesson about that topic, on how you can progress, how fast it can happen, and what are the factors. Okay, now let's have a look at this question. I'll give you a few seconds to read it. And this question is about evaluating a position, and I can see that there are a few replies already. Okay, first of all, let me tell you my feedback about this comment. As I've already said, thanks a lot for everybody who published their opinion here. And this answer that you gave, that we need to evaluate 5 elements: material, activity, pawn structure, king safety, and initiative. This is a classical answer that you can find in most of the chess books. Unfortunately, I have to say that practically it does not work. So for the person who posted this reply, please don't take it personal. It's my attempt to help you. I'm not criticizing you. In fact, I'm rather criticizing the authors of those books who propose it to you, because it sounds good, but in reality there is no way to apply it. Let me just open a certain game and we'll try to do it. Here I opened a random game. I just opened a big database and clicked on a game that first came to my eyes. Now this is a very random game and very random position, and let's just try to apply that classical approach and evaluate the position gradually based on different factors. So first we need to evaluate material. Here everything is pretty obvious. Black is ahead in material. He has rook against a knight, which is a material advantage. Now next we need to evaluate an activity of the pieces, and that's a lot more difficult task. If you want to do it precisely in computer style, like to say that white is +1 or -1, and then how can you do that? And who is more active in this position? Both players have pretty active position. No, it's gonna be difficult to give a certain precise answer here. Anyway, let's move on. Next we need to evaluate a pawn structure. As for the pawn structure, we can see that okay, black has a weak pawn on d6, white has some weaknesses on the king side, mainly because of his advanced pawn onto g4. However, white has 2 passed pawns on the queen side. He can push them forward, a4, b5 with the tempo, which is a big power of his position. And whose pawn structure is better? It's another question which is very difficult to answer. Anyway, let's move on. Next we need to evaluate safety of both kings. Well, here it's relatively easy to give the answer. Obviously white's king is more exposed. We can say that White's king is more weak. If White can trade queen somehow and go into an endgame, then White's king will be better. He'll be closer to the center. But it's unclear if White can do that somehow, if White can really trade the queens, and in the middle game his exposed king is a weakness of his position. Okay, let's move on, and lastly we need to evaluate the initiative. So who has the initiative in this position? Both players has some threats. White can play like bishop d4, taking the queen. In some variations maybe bishop g5, of course currently it's impossible, but in some other position it may work. Maybe g5, maybe knight d4 taking the knight and the rook, maybe a4 taking the rook and pushing the pawns. White has some threats. If we think about black also has some aggressive ideas. He can play queen h4 check, he can attack the g4 pawn, he can grab it actually using the pin, and he also has some initiative. And if we try to answer who has more initiative position, that's another thing that is pretty difficult to give a precise answer. You can see that we have spent a few minutes. Actually, I can see on my clock that we have spent 3 minutes discussing this position and analyzing each factor of this position one by one. And in the end, it did not clarify the situation at all. Now, could you tell now who is better in this position? You see, we really didn't clarify anything. In fact, we rather made it more complex, and we just mixed up things completely for ourselves. And let's not forget that while playing chess and while calculating different variations, you need to evaluate a lot of different positions. Like if you start calculating different lines, you need to calculate the resulting position of each line. And of course you don't have so much time to spend on evaluating each position if you start evaluating different factors. In conclusion, you can just see that this classical approach simply does not work. In conclusion, as someone already told here, this question is already answered in the course The Grandmaster's Positional Understanding, so I will not repeat it again. You can see it there, and in fact everything is a lot easier. Okay, now let's go to the next questions. Okay, let's have a look at this one. You have a few seconds to read this comment. I'll do it myself as well. Yeah, I know this game for sure. It's one of the classical games. So let me open it and then we'll discuss it further. This is the game you're talking about, Marshall Capablanca. Indeed, this is a famous game. It is presented in many chess books. And first of all, I should say that you should not believe to those chess books. Very often what you read there is just not true. I don't know why, but while talking about great players of the past, authors often start that unstrained prize of these players. They start say that this is a genius player, all his moves are brilliant, and he composed a long-term plan and was able to realize it gradually and win the game ultimately. And it looks like he even was able to oversee the game continuation almost until the end. This is all complete nonsense. I really don't know why they write it, and I'm surprised by myself. If you want, it would be better to read the books of Garry Kasparov. In his books, he is criticizing them. He's rather using an opposite approach. I don't know why, maybe just he want to prove that he's the greatest. Or maybe just he's objective and he's trying to find mistakes in their games. Anyway, when you look at the books of Kasparov, you will see a lot more true picture of the things. For example, in this game, what you read in chess books is that Capablanca here used a revolutionary plan. He used the attack of the pawn majority on the king side and he won the game. Now let's try to look at this situation from a more realistic point of view. Here White played rook f to c1, which is certainly wrong. We know that we need to play in the center. That's true. Actually, you wrote it in your comment that we need to play in the center, and that's true. So the rook should definitely go to d1, to an open file. White has pretty good prospects in the center. He can place his rooks there. Most likely both rooks should be doubled over this open d file. Also, White has an extra pawn in the center, that e pawn. He can advance it forward. It will give him additional advantage there and better control. Let's say if white advances this pawn to e4, it will provide him a control on the outpost square d5, which is good for white. Also, if white removes the queen somewhere, he can bring his bishop to d5 and fix it there on that strong piece, strong square, and that will be a really strong piece, either a bishop or a rook after an exchange. I mean, in any case, white had a very good situation here in the center, and he definitely should have played there. And in that case, black would have to do the same. He would have to oppose his rook on the d file in order to stop the white's initiative there, and that would be a normal game. And of course, this position is approximately equal, and in the end, it should be a draw. Anyway, if we come back to the actual game continuation, white played rook fc1, which is certainly wrong. It breaks the rules. In reply, black played rook to b8. In the books, you can read that this was a beginning of the genius plan of attack of the pawn majority on the queen side, but in fact everything is a lot easier. Simply, the b pawn was hanging, it was attacked by white's pieces, and black just protected it by the rook. You see, there is no genius idea behind this move. It is a very primitive defense of a pawn. Now, let's look it further. White played queen e4. Okay, maybe he's preparing bishop h3 using a pin. So black removed the queen. Oh, once again, you can see that, in fact, this is not a preparation of the genius plan of attack on the queen side. He simply removed the queen from the pin. And this queen has to keep protecting the c5 pawn. That's why really there are not many squares where it can be placed to. That's why he placed it to c7, because queen d6 is another option, but white could play rook d1 with the tempo. That's why he plays queen c7. Here white played rook to c3. It's quite unclear what white is going to do here. Perhaps he's going to attack the c-pawn, but obviously it does not work. Black can defend this pawn very easily. Now, black played b5 here, and the reason is again very simple. White is taking aim at that pawn on b7, and black can't use his rook. Ideally, black definitely wants to put his rooks over the d-file, but currently this rook is restricted by defense of the pawn, so black just pushed it in order to free his rook. So this move is very logical once again. White replied a3. Now black played c4. There are a few reasons for this move. Yeah, we may say that he's trying to exploit his extra pawn on the queen side, but in addition to that there are a lot of other reasons. First of all, these pawns are a little bit weak, and white is putting pressure on them. Let's say if black plays like rook d1, rook d8, putting rook on an open file, white can go queen c6, starting the attack on those pawns, and it may be unpleasant. That's why black definitely needs to do something with those pawns, and c4 helps black to make them protected, to keep this pawn protected, and thus to free his queen on the c7. Now it can go somewhere, and it doesn't have to protect the c-pawn anymore. Also, another reason is that white makes really strange maneuvers with his rook. Somehow he didn't put it on an open d-file, and instead made that really strange maneuver rook c1 to c3. And with black's pawn on c5, who knows, maybe sooner or later white would realize his mistake and would replace it to an open file with rook d3. But if black plays c4, he eliminates this option and fixes the rook on a bad square c3, where it really has nothing to do. The only thing this rook can do is just to move back. That's another reason for the move c4. Once again, you can see that the moves of Capablanca are very simple, in fact, and were determined by specific properties of this position. So when you read that Capablanca in that position, if we move a few moves back, let me do that. Okay, here's the position once again. If you read that Capablanca applied that revolutionary plan of using his pawn majority on the queen side, that's, 90% nonsense, because in fact he made moves which he was forced to make, just because white was attacking black's pawns, and black had to do something about that. And also, in this game, white did a lot very wrong. For some reasons he did not play it in the center. He started those strange maneuvers of the rook, and black just had to react on that somehow, and that's why he decided in the end to lock that rook on a bad position on the queen side. And that's why this game is not an exception. So here white should have played in the center, and that would be a correct plan. And the last note about that is that yes, black realized ultimately his plan of using the pawn majority on the queen side. In the end, it finally happened. But you can see that there is nothing so special here. There is a general rule which states that we need to use our advantages. Indeed, black has the extra pawn on the c file, which it doesn't has a counter pawn. It's black's advantage, and it would be nice to use it. So this is a general plan, and there is nothing so special in pawn majority attack. It's just one specific case of this general rule of exploiting your advantages. That's why I did not put too much explanations in this area before. I'm getting back to your comment. In the end, I'd like to thank you for your question, and also I'd like to say that it is very good that you're thinking independently and you're analyzing the games, the positions by yourself, and trying to understand why things happened and what was wrong, what was right, and trying to understand which ideas motivated players to play those moves. I'm pretty sure that this serious approach will help you a lot. And the last note I'd like to say here is that please study my courses that you have and just use this understanding, because after a study of these courses your chess understanding will be pretty high, and after that you don't have to believe to that nonsense that you can read in some chess books. You can understand the situation better by yourself, because unfortunately not always what you can find in chess books is really good or useful. So use your own understanding and everything will be good. Again, I wish you success, keep your serious approach, and everything will be great. Now, let me finish for today, because this lesson seems to be pretty long already. In the next lesson, I will of course keep answering the next questions. And let me also say that I will try to answer all the questions that has been published here up to date. At the same time, I will not answer the questions that somebody will publish in the future, because I can see that there's a really very long list of these questions, and it's gonna be difficult even to answer all existing questions, and if you start publishing some new, that will just become endless. So I will make my best to answer all existing questions, and if you like to publish new questions, you're still welcome. I will not answer them personally, but you can initiate the conversation with other people here. So please take part in a discussion. If you know the answer to someone's question, please write your opinion. It is very nice from your side and very useful, because we can share the useful ideas between different people and it will be beneficial for everybody. So let me wish you all the best. Thank you for all the questions, and I'll talk to you next time.